I married my husband because he made me feel safe. He was stable, successful, and predictable, everything I thought I needed. After years of chaotic, exhausting relationships, for a while that calm was a relief, but over time it became something else. Predictability turned into emotional distance. We stopped talking. Unless it was about bills, or Aaron's touch became rare. Intimacy. Robotic, then non-existent. I told myself it was normal. People get older. Life gets busy, but I knew I was starving for attention, for affection, for someone to see me I envied. Couples who held hands in public or laughed over coffee. I had everything I was supposed to want, yet I felt like a ghost. When my stepson moved in after breakup, I braced for tension, but he was quiet, respectful. He helped. Around the house, asked how I was. And when I answered, he actually listened, something my husband hadn't done in years. It was innocent. At first, I'd mention how tired I felt, and he'd suggest a show to unwind. I'd say dinner was lonely, and he'd sit with me, keeping me company. I started looking forward to those moments, not in a romantic way, but in a human one. He noticed things, a new haircut, a different sweater. He complimented me without agenda. My husband hadn't looked at me like that in years. One evening, we ended up talking over leftovers. He laughed. Really laughed for the first time in months, and he smiled and said, "You should do that more, it suits you." Something shifted. It wasn't lust. It wasn't love. It was recognition I felt. Seen alive. Then came the night that changed everything. My husband was away at a conference. I passed my stepson's room heading for water when I heard a sound, soft, then clearer. Curious, I glanced in. The door was ajar. I didn't mean to look, but I froze. He was on his bed, shirtless, phone in hand, caught in an intimate moment. A woman's voice drifted from his speaker, breathless, unmistakably sexual. As should have turned away, but I didn't for a second too long. I just watched shame hit me immediately. But it was tangled with something else. Something I didn't want to name. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. It wasn't just what I saw. It was how I felt. Something primal and confusing had been stirred, and I couldn't shake it. The next day, I avoided him, but the image lingered, and worse, so did the feeling. The more I tried to forget, the more I noticed him. His scent after a shower, his low voice when he was tired, the way he looked at me like I mattered. I started dressing better. Around the house, a little mascara, lipstick. I told myself it was for me, but it wasn't. It was for the attention. I craved his attention. We never mentioned that night. But something between us changed. Attention buzzed in the silence, a thread pulling tighter each day. Then it snapped. My husband had left again after another cold, useless argument. I sat on the couch, wine glass in hand, eyes puffy from crying. Miss Stepson came in late, saw me, and sat beside me. He didn't ask, just sat. After a long pause, he said softly, "You saw me that night, didn't you?" I didn't answer, but I didn't deny it either. He didn't react, not with shame, not with arrogance, just quiet understanding. "You haven't looked at me the same since." I wanted to retreat, to change the subject. But then he touched my hand, and in that single touch there was more warmth than I'd felt in years. I whispered that this was wrong. He nodded, but neither of us moved. I told him it couldn't happen. "Then why are we both still here?" he asked. I had no answer. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't seduction. It was surrender. We didn't speak. We didn't need 2 years of neglect, loneliness, and unmet needs collided in a single moment afterward. I didn't feel satisfaction, just silence. He looked at me, unsure. I couldn't meet his eyes. I stood up, said I needed air, and left the room. When I looked in the mirror that night, I didn't recognize myself, not because I felt guilty, but because I didn't. Not yet. What I felt was relief. A dark, honest kind of relief, like I'd been parched for years, and finally took a drink the next morning. Everything felt too normal. I made coffee, sat alone. When he entered the kitchen, He looked at me carefully. We didn't speak of it, we didn't speak much. At all. After that days passed, then weeks he started, spending more time out, eventually mentioning moving back to his mom's. I didn't stop him, I just nodded when he left. He paused at the door and said, "Take care of yourself." Then he was gone. Now I go through the motions. Smile when I have to play their role, but deep inside I'm unraveling. I keep asking myself, was I just lonely, or did I trade years of silence for a single moment of truth? I broke something, a marriage, a role, maybe even part of myself, and I still don't know if I'd take it.